This section is called Wife of Bath's Fifth Husband, and we suppose that this is going to be the last of her series of husbands. Like the previous one, it was called The Wife of Bath's Fourth Husband. This is called Wife of Bath's Fifth Husband. So let's get into this section. And now, of my fifth husband I will tell, God grant his soul may never get to hell, and yet he was to me most brutal too. My ribs yet feel as they were black and blue, and shall ever until my dying day. So, the fourth husband, the one previously talked about by her, she said that the fourth husband was a womanizer and he kept a mistress. That is why wife of Bath was really jealous of the fourth husband. Now the fifth husband is probably worse, and that is why wife of Bath says that may he never go to hell, because he was so bad that there was ample chance that the fifth husband might go to hell. And it was obvious the fifth husband was probably worse than the fourth, so we'll expect the worst when she describes this fifth husband. And she says that he was to me most brutal, like he treated her very badly and with some violence involved. And she says, my ribs yet feel as they were black and blue, and ever shall until my dying day. So there was some violence that happened between her and the fifth husband, and she says that I can still feel the bruises on my body, as if the scars, the bruises, they will remain with me for the rest of my life. So there were ample violence and a very serious violence that occurred in her fifth marriage. That is why she bears these bruises, these scars till today. And we understand the very first thing about the fifth husband, that he was a very violent man. He was kind of a man that we call today as the toxic masculine. And obviously this brings back again that theme of domestic violence, which is one of the most important themes in the Wife of Bath's prologue as a whole. But in our bed he was so fresh and gay, and therewithal he could so well impose what time he wanted to use of my bell chose, that though he'd beaten me on every bone, he could re-win my love, and that full soon. And wife of Bath says something very different, and she is usually not like this. And she says that this fifth husband, although he was very violent and toxic masculine, he was very good in bed. He was an absolute animal when it came to sex. And this fifth husband, he knew how to turn wife of Bath on, how to turn her on. And he did this whenever he wanted to. He knew he had that skill. He was very good in bed and he knew how to turn on women. And that is one reason why, even though he hit her and tortured her so much that she still bears those bruises on her ribs, she forgave him very easily for the good sex that they had. So he could re-win wife of Bath's love every time he lost it and had some violence, because only reason was that he was very good in bed. I guess I loved him best of all, for he gave of his love most sparing to me. Now she says a very interesting thing, that out of all the husbands, out of all the 5 husbands, I loved this fifth husband, that violent man, the most, because this husband, he hardly loved me back. Now this was really strange, because how would you love a man who doesn't love you back? And with this, Chaucer kind of delves into the female psychology when it comes to love and relationships. Now he goes on to describe, wife of Bath goes on to describe, we women have, if I am not to lie, in this love matter, a quaint fantasy. Look out a thing we may not lightly have, and after that we'll cry all day and crave. Forbid a thing, and that thing covet we. Press hard upon us, then we turn and flee. Now, Wife of Bath admits that women have a very strange fantasy when it comes to love. And with this part of Wife of Bath's prologue, Chaucer actually delves into the woman psychology and tries to discuss it in terms of this relationships and marriage. And Wife of Bath says, look out a thing we may not lightly have. Women, they crave for something they cannot have. This is women's mentality, according to Wife of Bath, that women crave for something they cannot have and they will cry for it all day. And what is it? Like an emotionally unavailable man, like the fifth husband. Wife of Bath couldn't get his love because he sparingly loved, as she said, but he was just so good in bed, and Wife of Bath actually craved for his love apart from the sex, but she doesn't get it because he sparingly loved. And it is almost a paradox that because this man, this fifth husband, didn't love her back and was emotionally unavailable kind of man, that is why she loved him more. And she says that the fifth husband was my most loved husband out of the five. And if something is forbidden, he says, forbid a thing and that thing covet we. If something is forbidden, we crave more for it. And obviously this brings to our mind that image of Eve and the forbidden fruit. And Milton probably tries to say the same thing about women, although it is perhaps a very misogynistic view, but both Chaucer and Milton kind of says the same thing. I mean, not Milton, even the story is in Genesis, so in that way it is before Chaucer, even before Chaucer, and that tradition later carried out by Milton. They all say the same thing, that whatever is forbidden to a woman is more attractive to a woman. And remember, the first three husbands of Wife of Bath, they actually loved her, but Wife of Bath doesn't care about their love because that is very easily available. When it came to the fourth one, that husband actually loved her, but he kept other women, other mistresses, and Wife of Bath loved him more than the first three. And this fifth husband, he hardly loves back Wife of Bath, and Wife of Bath craves for him the most out of the all five. So that's how the woman psychology is. And she says, press hard upon us, then we turn and flee. If you come after us, the women, if you pursue us, then we run away and then we turn you down. We only chase men who are emotionally unavailable. We chase men whom we cannot get. That's what she says about women. But for men who actually comes after us to win our love, we run away from them. And men who actually love us and quote us all the time, like the first three husbands of Wife of Bath, they lose their value altogether. Sparingly offer we our goods when fair, great crowds at market for dearer ware, and what's too common brings but little price. All this knows every woman who is wise. And this again brings back the trade and commerce imagery and tries to relate it with relationships. And she says that if something is very widely available, like love, even in market, if something is widely available, the market price drops. And a similar thing happens when it comes to relationships. If you actually go after someone and you give all of yours, you are very widely available and you lose your value. Only rare items are costly in the market, She says that, and every wise woman knows this. So, a man who doesn't really offer all his love directly and is very sparingly loving and is kind of emotionally unavailable, that unavailable man is more attractive because his love is rare. So, this is what this section is. We continue with the next section.